Hello everyone, this is Shiva Joy. Welcome to my channel Zion Shekinah Official. Zion is God's dwelling place, Shekinah is God's glory. Today we're going to look into something which is why Adam and Eve had to be separated. Separated from God's presence, you know. So, this was actually kind of like I was thinking about that, and then the Lord gave me this answer. It was kind of like downloaded in my spirit, and I thought I should say, even though it's a small thing, I'm not the sin, I'm not talking about the sin to be a small thing. I'm saying that though this whatever I'm going to talk about, it's going to be like very short, the video, I mean, but the gist, the substance of that is very important for us to ponder, because it's really important, because actually sometimes we think that sin is kind of like deliberate, or sin is kind of like it is deliberately done, but sometimes we think that sin is like unknowingly done, or unintentionally done, or something like that. But that's not the case, because a human, as long as a human can think, uh, just about like five things, so also he can think about other things that God says that he should not do in his word. Not just that, the Bible talks about, sin. uh, Sin is willfully done. Why? Because for a Christian, when a sin is portrayed in the Bible, we are supposed to read that. And I'm sure, I mean, if some Christians were not totally in the word, at least from their childhood until now, whatever age that may be, young, old, middle-aged, or whatever that is, or um, whatever phase they're in, they would have heard, about the do's and don'ts of the Bible. So, um, when they know that sin is sin, and in the Bible, somewhere, somehow, at least in their lifetime, they would have heard at least 100 times, because I bet they will be able to hear million times, but I'm just saying the least of the least number, mm, and that is 100 times. So even if they would have heard this word sin, and they don't, it's not that they wouldn't have understood that, but it's that they didn't want to either recognize that, or didn't want to um, actually you know take heed to that, or be warned by that, or be very careful about that, or or they didn't take any precaution. So it's very important, about that. Everyone knows about sin, and on the other hand, a lot of people know about sin. Everyone knows about sin. People who are not Christians also know about sin. The reason they know about sin is because they would be following some religion, and in their religions also, their deities talk about sin, though it is not the same thing. Definitely not the same thing according to the word of God. But in their view, some morals were told as, good and bad were considered sin. But how do you deal with that? What are the ways to deal with sin? Or how do you stop sinning? Or how do you think that you should not entertain sin, or be in sin, and all that is not what their religions talk about. They only give like few examples of being good and bad. But if we're not going into that side of the thing, what their religion is talking about, and all that, we're not going. What I'm trying to say is that God in our Bible said very serious things about sin. And I want to read this because it was downloaded, I just wrote it. So, see, Adam and Eve were separated from God's presence because of the sin of disobedience. We know that, right? We know that they were separated because of the sin of disobedience. Because why? God told them, don't eat the tree of knowledge. Don't eat the tree of knowledge. But what did Eve do? The serpent said, it is all wrong what God said. You can eat it because God doesn't want you to become like him. So this was what a big lie was told. In deception, Eve ate that. And when the serpent, and this is in it's in Genesis. Actually, the thing is in Genesis. I'll give you the scriptures right now. It's so weird. I'm trying to actually see where it is in Genesis, and it's not even like taking me there. I mean, in the phone, So, yeah, it's in Genesis 3, chapter 3. So, anyway, so that came into their lives because of the sin of disobedience. Now, because of that, what happened? Not only did Eve sin, she also lured Adam to sin also. Right? Now, when she lured Adam to sin, that when she made or convinced Adam to sin, three important characteristics have been formed right then and there. The first one that I want to talk about is there are three characters actually. The first one is a godly character. Godly character tells us, let me tell you three characters. The first one is a godly character. The second one is human character. The third is the Satan's character. Now we might think, oh, we know all those. Yeah, most of us know all those. But I want to emphasize a little more deeper into these things. Godly character, human character, Satan's character. So usually what I mean to say is these three characters are in a person. Not all the three, any one of them. Any one of them is in a person's soul and their mind and their spirit. So only one of them is there. In everyone in the entire world, as long as they're called humans, it is there. So when women, I'm going to talk a little more about women here, because see, Eve is the main focus here. The center of focus is Eve. Because Eve, convinced Adam to sin, let's look at women and their characteristics. When women emulate God's character, we're looking at God's character, right? Godly character. When women emulate God's character, they save their men. How do they save their men? Because they know not just their men, but the men in church or the men in the society or whoever they're acquainted or in their workplace. How do they know that how can you say that they save men? They save men by godly instincts, by godly nature, by the Spirit of God. They have discernment, and then such women, what they do is, they'll say to the men guiding them, not to do this, or to do this, or not to, or to say yes to this, or not to say no to that. So when any sin or bad thing that comes to destroy everyone or put people into trouble, women who have possessed godly character, they immediately tell these men any man who is in, in their vicinity, um, and they'll guide them in a godly way. The second character is, and they emulate godly character, these godly women. The second one is human character. What human character does is, in a woman, they work according to the emotions, which sometimes can bring good things or bad things. Okay, human character is what it's all the time according to our mind, right? What do we do? Sometimes what women do is, they only say, sometimes they do what is right, sometimes they do what is wrong, sometimes they do only what is right, and sometimes they do only what is wrong. So why do they do that? It only depends on their emotions. Some women who when they feel very good, they only do the good things. If they feel bad, they do the bad things. Or what they do is, when they feel good and bad, then mixture of things come and play in front of them, to different people. Okay, suppose a woman who feels like, oh, I'm not feeling good today, or I'm also feeling happy today. What they do is, when a person who she doesn't like, if they come, then they give a bad advice, or they be bad to them, or their opinions become very subtle with them. But if a person who is good to them, if they come and they like them, then suddenly they change their mind, and then they give good things. So their perception and their thinking, everything depends on the human mind, not on the godly character, right? So such kind of things, when it happens, what happens is, the 99%, 90%, or I would say, uh, doesn't go well, with the characteristic, doesn't go well with people, and it is not very fruitful, or it is not very good. Usually it is, those situations can be a compromise situations or bad situations. So they result in such situations, a compromise situation or a bad situation, because this person thought things in their human way and tried to tell the people about how and when they were, what they were feeling about, not from a perception of a godly character, not from a godly character, and from the perception really, mainly from the human. See, I'll tell you two example, maybe whatever comes to my mind. I'll tell. Some people believe in karma. Um, it's only Hindus who believe that. They say that, yeah, they say, if someone does good things, then good things happen to them. But someone does bad things, then bad things happen to them. They believe in that, like 99, 100% they believe in that. What does that mean? They think that if a human being from his mind or her mind is doing the right things or the good things, then they also in their afterlife have good things have the good things, to share, or they become good and they are born in a good state. Otherwise they would be born as, that rebirth, it's called, they, or reincarnation, no, I mean rebirth. They would be born into a frog, or into a rat, or into a dog, or something like that. So this is what they believe. That means their mind is the center of everything, but the mind can all the time be either wrong or right, because it is the human mind. It is not a godly mind. It is a human character. It is a human mind, right? See, that's why we see sometimes people are good to us and sometimes people are bad to us. We don't understand, you know, uh, and suddenly they change their moods according to their situations. If usually we see that, also we see another example is with the in-laws. If the son likes the daughter-in-law very much, the mother-in-law gets very angry. The husband's mother gets very angry about that. Her mood changes, and she feels a little jealous and all that stuff, because her son is showing attention to another woman instead of her. And also, they two become one, so that's like inseparable bond there. But then the mother-in-law feels very insecure, and she starts showing bad behavior there to the son. Is she a bad woman? No, she's not a bad woman. But why is she showing that kind of bad behavior? It's only because she's thinking from a human perspective. She's totally controlled by her own mind, by her own thoughts, by her own emotions, by her thinking, everything. Like, she's only controlled by that. So what does that mean? She has a human mind, not a godly mind. So it becomes very difficult to that kind of outcome is not at all good for anyone in the world. Why? Because why? Because, see, when you operate from that kind of mind, you can be good to people at sometimes, you can be bad to people at sometimes, or you can be all the time good also, thinking that, oh, if I don't do this karma, if I'm not a good person, this karma will taunt me. And what will they do? They try to do so good to others. Eventually they keep doing bad, actually, in their own way. Why? Because, again, see, any deed done with a selfish motive is not counted, it says in the Bible, right? You have to be so selfless to be a generous person. But if you're a generous person thinking that, oh, I'm going to get that back, God is watching me, and so if I give these things to them, I will be blessed. Thinking such kind of things will not benefit or will not get them anywhere, because that is not what God said in the Bible. So again, the human mind is being played there. So that's why people don't attain what they're supposed to attain when they think in the human way. Now, the third character that I want to bring it out here is Satan's character. See, Satan's character is when Satan's character is everything negative, right? Satan's character, they make the man fall miserably. So it's very important to understand how women are shaping their character. See, what I mean, Satan's character is a character where they make the men fall, or even any other person, they make them fall. And because I'm looking at only the women here and their character, I'm talking, about the women. What happens here is, who is a Satan? What is the very nature of Satan? The very nature of Satan is deception, lies, gossips, selfishness, murder, rape, lust. All those things are Satan's character. So when they let the Satan's character be in them, that means rule them. They're not being godly, or at least they're not being in a human way, but they totally possess the nature of Satan, and they work from that kind of thing. So it is very important excuse me. So it's very important to understand what Satan is, what are his ways, how does he make a man fall, how does he make a woman fall. The first example of sin that we've seen here is the fall of Adam and Eve. What happened? In the Garden of Eden, Satan came and said to Eve, eat this fruit so that you may live like God or be like God, he says. And immediately Eve doesn't think about the promises of God, or remember God's word, because he spoke, right? He spoke to them, so that is God's word. He so they won't she won't think like that. Instead, she'll get so deceived and bought by Satan's lies. Immediately she'll convince Adam also to eat. When this happens, both of them fall into sin, and we know the story. They're driven out of the Garden of Eden, and the gates, and the angel stands there till today. So that kind of separation happened between God and man, Adam and Eve. So Satan's character is very, very, the very wicked. Does he think like a human? No, he doesn't think like a human. See, he doesn't think like a human because humans are made in the image of God, but because of their sinful spirit, sometimes they drift to the human and also to the satanic thinking. So Satan is not created as human, so he doesn't work as a human, or he doesn't think as a human thinks. He is definitely not God, so he is not a godly person. It's a beast. This Satan is very wicked. Why? Because from the beginning, he has, Lucifer. We know the story that Lucifer wanted to be like God, sat in God's throne, and then God sees him and pushes him down because he is filled with pride. And what happens? He takes 2/3 of the angels and he falls down. And as they're falling down, their godly character changes into a beastly character, wicked character. Their godly, what do you call, their all their like the heavenly attire changes into a beastly attire, right? They have wings. Angels have wings, but when they are falling down, they get the wing. They also have wings, but they are like reptile wings. They're like dinosaur wings. They're not angel wings anymore. In heaven, there were beautiful people, beautiful angels coming down. They're very ugly to look at. You can't look at, and they take different forms of different shapes and sizes and forms. So that is what happened to Satan. Now he gets very angry because God created Adam in his own image, it says. So because man, that's why, because man was created in God's image, Satan becomes very, very, very jealous. And he says it cannot happen. God and man cannot exist. They cannot be friends, like how God intends them to be. So I will disrupt, I will bring disconnection between both of them. And this is what he has done through Adam and Eve. So Satan's character is all that we've talked about. And when it comes to human, see, recently we've been listening to Epstein files, right? This guy, I was, reading about Epstein. And he's a very knowledgeable person, actually, if you see. He was a mathematician. He did like a lot of trade with very big firms and all that. He actually solved their problems when they were going into losses and all that. He was a very, very brainy guy. But his mind and his spirit was totally engulfed by Satan. That is one example. So he did what he did, and he also made others do what he did. So this guy is a very, very demonic person. But if you see him, if you study about him, at a very young age, actually he was promoted 2 classes up because he was very brainy. He was very brainy. He did math like this. And that's why he got all these, the way he made his way up was helping the big firms, helping the big businessmen. If they went in losses, he went there and he did some calculations there, and he made their business grow, and then they made him the shareholders of that. So like that also he got lot of money, accumulated lot of wealth also. On the other hand, he should have just stuck with that, but because of Satan totally engulfing him, totally the spirit was a satanic spirit, and because he gave his spirit soul to Satan, what happened? He became a very, very wicked man. He did what he did. So that is one example. When Satan enters a human, it is not about the human what he does. It is not, definitely there is no godly character. It is only the Satan that works in and through him. So people also who murder their loved ones, it happened in my family. They murder, they do this, they do that. Why are they doing what they're doing? Is only because the Satan, they have completely given themselves to Satan. Now this witchcraft, black magic, all that people do, why do they do that? Because they have totally given their lives to Satan, and Satan is the one who's working in and through them to do all these things. So is it about a human? Can we even look at them as human? No, we cannot. That's why God says we must have discernment. We must have, when we see a person, we must be so discerned in spirit. Now again, this is not to hate them, but to be very careful of who this person is. That's why discernment is very, very important, because we are not saying the right people, the bad people are the right people, and the right people are the wrong people, the bad people are the good people, or the good people are the bad people. So there is no say like that. That's why discernment is very important. So when Satan enters into their life, these are the things that they do. Now, I don't know if I should take these examples, but again, that's a big. I want to take some examples from. From the Bible, I was thinking some examples, but again, there's there will be a debate on that. So let me give you another example, which is like Samson and Delilah, right? Samson was a very good man, anointed by God to carry on the work of God. What happened? He fell for a woman who was very satanic also, because she was lustful. Is that a human character? No. Is that a godly character? Definitely not. She had totally this Satan enter her and do the things that she did. How can a woman, how can any woman bring harm to their husbands? No, right? In the right mind, in the right way, any good woman will not do that. But she did it. So for very bad reasons and all that. Then what happens? Because of her satanic will, satanic spirit, satanic soul, she made Samson fall into big trouble, lose his life, lose his eyes, lose his life, and he was not able to do what God told him to do, right? Because if he had lived, maybe he would have conquered many people, many things, and had done a lot of God's work. But because of that, this is a problem. Now, so that's why it's kind of like very, very important to understand these things. So a godly character, a human character, and a Satan's character. A godly character, God's character, human character, Satan's character. Godly character, human character, satanic character. So it's very, very important to understand. See, apart from these three, I don't think any person has any other character, because these are only the three divisions or the three boxes that we must put and analyze a person and walk according to what God tells us to walk, if we want to hear God and do His will. So that is what I wanted to talk about. Because one more thing. So that's why I wanted to talk about this. This is so important because I wanted to talk about Eve because, she's a woman, and as women, we need to be doers of the word of God, and as women, we need to be the women of Bible, you know, like Ruth, like Esther, like Naomi, like Rachel, also Leah, because she suffered, like Anna. So all these women, and then some women who are not like totally in the Lord and have done some mistakes. Even from them, we should be learning these things. But anyway, these three are the most important things I think that are there in the human, be it a man or a woman, both of them, and that's why they do what they do. And it's very important to recognize in which box we are. Are we in a godly box? Are we in the section of a godly character? Are we in the section of humanly character? Are we in the section of satanic character? Now, because we are human, yes, we will possess some kind of human nature, definitely, because we are born as human, right? But that human nature, the godly nature, should surpass the human nature. Because, see, one big example is when Jesus came on the earth, he was fully man, fully human, but also he was fully God too. So, in the human form, he went through everything that the human would have gone through if he was punished like Jesus, right? Or if he was crucified like Jesus, if he was blamed like Jesus, if he was mocked like Jesus, like human, he did everything. He did not say, I'm God, I can rescue myself, when he could have done that. He even says, if I wanted, the angels would come and rescue me, right? So he faced everything on the earth. So it is going to be difficult, but at the same time, we have to do that because it is a mandate. We are called to do that as Christians. Otherwise, what kind of life are we showing to the others, right? Our life doesn't totally become Christian if we don't walk in the obedience and the nature of God, right? Yes, human nature will be there, but at least that human nature should not do anything bad, you know uh, I mean, not do evil. So rectifying everything, examining it all the time, is very, very important. um, so this is what I wanted to talk about. I don't know, my phone is also acting up. I can't record also. It's showing me some message that it's full or something like that, or it's not. So I'm going to pause here. I'm going to end here. Thank you all so much for listening. And in Genesis 3, please go back and read. Actually, Genesis 1 to 3, go back and read all the things, the fall of man and the creation and everything, and how God's and when God talked, how beautifully he talked to Adam and Eve. So please go back and read that. So thank you so much for listening, and may the Lord bless this word. Thank you.